Welcome to That Bible Guy, where we equip God's people to share. We are on our top 10 objections to the Bible series, and we've reached number 3. So we're in our top 3 now, eagerly anticipated top 3. And the one I'm going to give today is one that I've done a video on not that long ago, but I couldn't leave it out because for me, in terms of the questions that have been asked about the Bible, this is one of the big ones. So the third biggest objection to the Bible is that the Bible has been changed. The Bible in some way or another has been changed. Now, how I'm going to answer this for us today is in the form of an acronym. So a way for us to remember this information. You may need to go back to it in the future in order to remember this. How do we deal with that objection that the Bible's been changed? Well, I want us to remember the word because often people say that it's men who've changed the Bible. That's what they mean. So the acronym is MEN. M-E-N. So first point on that M-E-N is meaning. Meaning. M stands for meaning. What do you mean the Bible's been changed? Who changed it? When did they change it? How did they do it? Given that we have the Dead Sea Scrolls, which confirm the scriptures that we had found in the cave in Qumran, how did they interject at some point in history to change all the scriptures that we have today? How did they go about that? Who was it? And why did they do it? What was the motivation to get in and do that? And how did they stop anyone else from interfering in that process where they changed the scriptures? Where is the evidence for this? So that they've interjected and changed the scriptures to say what they wanted it to say. Where is the evidence for that? And do you know the evidence? So they'll say the evidence is such and such a place. Well, what are the details of that? Let's see the details. And you're not saying this because you are saying that they're wrong. You just want to know the details because the reality is this is a lot of what people's been passed down throughout the years, that people have said this to one another without really knowing what that means and not really understanding how well attested the scriptures really are. So meaning, the first one is meaning. And there's something we're doing here. And this is a mistake that Christians make, is that we don't reverse the burden of proof. Someone makes a claim or an objection and we instantly feel the need to defend it. Who's the person that needs to defend it? It's the one who makes the claim. The person who makes the claim, in this case, they say to you, the Bible's been changed, they need to back up their claim. They're the one that they have the burden of proof is on them, and don't let them off the hook. So if someone makes a claim to you, they need to back it up. Don't let them off the hook by jumping in to say, no, I think it hasn't been changed, and we've got stuff we can present. But first of all, you back up your claim. I want to hear what you have to say, and then I know what I need to deal with. But don't let people off the hook for the claims that they make. On that note, as Christians, we need to be able to defend the claims that we make. Watch what we say. Don't overstate the evidence. We need to be able to back up whatever it is that we have said, the claims that we have made. So first is M, stands for meaning. Second letter, as you know, for men is E. And this stands for evidence is against the common reasons and claims that are stated. So people make the claim, the Bible's been changed. So the evidence is against what people commonly mean. What people commonly mean by that, and I'm sure there's lots of other meanings, is that the Catholic Church in some way changed the Bible. What they commonly mean with that is the Emperor Constantine. And it's the Council of Nicaea in AD 323. I think it was July the 4th, the summer of that year. And they say that in that council or other synods around that time, council meetings of bishops, that the books were changed as to what books would be in the Bible and what weren't. That's a very common belief, and need I say myth, that I have heard over the years. Is this true? Well, let's be real about this. It is just factually incorrect. Look it up online, look it up historically, and find out what was the Council of Nicaea meeting to discuss and what wasn't discussed at this meeting. They met up to consider the deity of Jesus, the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, and from that point and other points, the Trinity, idea of the Trinity was established. So it was about the deity of Jesus. Where did that come from? Well, it was the teaching of Arianism, it was teaching that Jesus wasn't fully God. And from that point in AD 323, anyone of Arian leaders were then kicked out of the church for heresy. So that was the reason for their meeting, and they did not discuss, remove, take out, or add any books or change what we know as the Bible today. It was not changed in any way at that point, and we can simply read the details about that or any other meeting that was taking place at that time. The evidence is incorrect. Evidence is against this because the evidence also supports that the canon was well established long before AD 323. We have a fragment called the Muratorian fragment. Look it up online. AD 170, which has a list of almost all of the books as we know them in the New Testament today. The Muratorian fragment from AD 170. We also have the letters of the early church fathers, Clement, Polycarp, all writing around AD 90 to AD 200, long before the Council of Nicaea. And they talked about the canon of Scripture, the need for canonization because of teachings like Arianism. We need to teach what is in accord with what Jesus said, and there needs to be a consistent theme, theological theme with all the books of the Bible that we had. So the evidence is against it. So the first point is, what do you mean? The second, don't say it arrogantly, just what do you mean? Say it nice, of course. Second point, E, is the evidence is against that viewpoint, which is commonly the Catholic Church changed the scriptures. The third thing, so M.E.N, and this counters the other accusation of how it's been changed, which is the idea of what people really mean is new translation. And the third point, N, is new discoveries, new evidence discovered. So the common thing that people say when they say the Bible's been changed is what they really mean is there's been new translations. There's been lots and lots of revisions and translations. And the very idea of that, why so many? Why has it been changed? Who is behind this? They don't really know the details, so they assume it means it's been changed over the years to fit with whatever government or council wants it to say. Well, the reasons for so many revisions and new translations, and I'll have a very summary article about this you can view after this video on the need for new translations, was, and I've said this before, older, more reliable manuscripts were unearthed, discovered by archaeologists, which brought us back further to the original Greek that we had, which was more authentic and reliable than the manuscripts we had. At one time, we only had manuscripts from the 9th century AD onwards, and then 3 massive manuscripts called uncial manuscripts, so they're written in large letters without spacing or punctuation. These manuscripts were unearthed. Incredible discoveries. I'm going to read about just a few of them right now. If you're not excited about this, I'll tell you how you can be. It's a book I read which has been an incredible, but some new discoveries have meant that new translations were needed with older, more reliable wording from the original Greek. New discoveries. The Sinaitic manuscript, the Vatican manuscript, and Alexandrian manuscript. The 3 major discoveries which have brought about the need for new translations. The Vatican manuscript. It's in the Vatican Library in Rome, you'll not be surprised to hear, since about 1481. It's dated back, the oldest, dated back to around AD 300 to 325. It's got all of the Greek Old and New Testaments with a little few passages missing due to how it's been handled over the years. Interestingly, Napoleon carried this manuscript off as a prize of victory in one of his battles to Paris. So even Napoleon had his hands on this manuscript at one point, and it was published around the year 1819 or just after. Interestingly, a really interesting point is that English scholar Trigels was allowed to see this manuscript, but not to copy a word. His pockets were searched before he might open it, and all writing materials were taken away. And this bit was funny. 2 clerics stood beside him and snatched away the volume if he looked too long at any passage. How difficult that would have been to try and pretend you're not looking at a passage for too long, or else they would snatch it away. And that's the Vatican manuscript. We also have the second one, and probably the most fascinating story of all, really, is from the Sinaitic manuscript. This was currently in the British Museum, dated around 330 AD, by Constantine van Tischendorf. Incredible, bizarre name. When I give you the book in a minute, you can see what you can read about him. Found at St. Catherine's Monastery at the foot of Mount Sinai. And again, it's around about the 1800s that was published as well. But the discovery of this manuscript is incredibly fascinating. And just to read a little bit of a summary of Van Tischendorf's writings, and you can read this online, by the way. You can read Van Tischendorf's own discovery of the manuscript online. You can read his letter, and it's fascinating. But just a little blurb about what he said. And you can look in this book, How We Got the Bible. That's Neil Lightfoot, revised and expanded 3rd edition. So how we got the Bible. And he said, upon discovering this, it was at the foot of Mount Sinai, in the Covenant of St. Catherine, that I discovered the pearl of all my researches. In visiting the library of the monastery in the month of May 1844, I perceived in the middle of a great hall a large and wide basket full of old parchments. And the librarian, who was a man of information, told me that 2 heaps of papers like these, mouldered by time, had already been committed to the flames. What was my surprise to find amid this heap of papers a considerable number of sheets of a copy of the Old Testament in Greek, which seemed to me to be one of the most ancient I had ever seen. The authorities of the convent allowed me to possess myself of a third of these parchments, or about 43 sheets, all the more readily as they were destined for the fire. But I could not get them to yield up possession of the remainder for this reason. The too lively satisfaction I had displayed had aroused their suspicions as to the value of the manuscript. I transcribed a page of the text of Isaiah and Jeremiah and enjoined on the monks to take religious care of all such remains which might fall in their way. I love that. He said, my all too enthusiastic response to what I had in my hands gave away the value of the manuscript. They did not realize it was on its way to the fire. Some of it had been burned already, but I was so enthusiastic about what I was holding in my hands, they realized this is of immense value. And that's the Sinaitic manuscript. The third that you can look at as well is the Alexandria manuscript, also in the British Museum, dated a bit later, around 400 AD. And that was a New Year's gift given to the new King Charles I. So it made its way around royalty, and in the 1700s was put into the British Museum. And it was around about 1621 people became aware of that. These manuscripts were incredible discoveries. And they were the reason behind, in part, the Westcott and Hort's revised edition of the New Testament, and many other translations. As I say, you can see the article online. So remember, to the accusation, the Bible has been changed. Remember M.E.N. M stands for meaning. What do you mean by that? M meaning yes. E, evidence is against the common statements that people make about why it's been changed against the Catholic Church. You can look that up online. And the new and incredible discoveries. I would encourage you to get that book, read that book, How We Got the Bible, dig in. If you find this helpful today, please like it. Please share it on for other people. Please subscribe to that Bible Guy. It's so encouraging to see new subscribers. If you want to sign up to the ministry, please sign up to the Patreon link. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I'm excited to get back with number 2 and number 1 just before Christmas. I think number 1 will fall on about Christmas Eve, maybe, all being well. So thanks for joining me today. Let's get his word out there.